Parents of Reddit, what is the worst thing you have ever done in front of your teenage kid? I bought potato salad from the deli and was putting it into a glass cookware as if it was homemade. I got busted. You are a monster. I haven't drunk much alcohol over the last 10 years, but about 3 years ago I had a few too many. Kids were 13 and 16. We'd gone to a relative's barbecue, which was walking distance from home. Hadn't planned on drinking, but that's the way the night went. Eldest went home early, so the boy and I wandered back after midnight. I remember playing fighting with them in the living room. The next thing I remember is being in bed feeling sick. I was sick where I lay and tried to get up, but couldn't, and thought, well, I've messed the bed up already, I may as well just carry on here. Then I got up to have a shower, opposite end of the house. Kids woke up. I didn't have a towel, so I ran back through to my room in the buff and collapsed on the floor. I woke up hours later. The kids had covered me up, stripped and cleaned my bed, washed all my sheets, dried them and remade my bed. They still bring up, remember when Mum was drunk and threw up all over herself. Yeah, don't talk about all the times I wasn't drunk and was being a good mum, eh? I like to think of it as a deterrent. Good to hear that they took care of you while you were out cold and sick on the floor. That was really sweet of them. Yeah, I've been very lucky. They're awesome. I was a college freshman and had to come home for winter break, and the boyfriend had just flown in to visit. He was going to meet my parents for the first time ever. I was out giving him a tour of my hometown when I got a call from my dad. All he said was, "Pumpkin, get back to the house and check out this big fire I made." I drove us home after he spam called me 4 more times and kept yelling about how cool the fire was. I rarely ever saw my dad drink when I was growing up. He'd always been hyper-responsible and straight-laced. He's exactly like Hank Hill, except with a different southern accent, and he's a nerdy electrical engineer instead of a propane salesman. I came home to find my dad and his brother blackout drunk, stumbling around a huge bonfire in the backyard, looking for more sticks to throw in the pit, holding their own half-empty bottles of whiskey and wearing matching cowboy hats. I have no idea where they got the cowboy hats. My then boyfriend introduced himself, and instead of asking him about how his flight was, how school is going, where we went that afternoon, or any of the normal pleasantries you'd ask your daughter's boyfriend, my dad blurts out, "Have I ever told you all about the one and only time I did cocaine?" He launched into a story about how he did lines of coke in a hot tub with the local weather lady at a community theatre cast party in the 1980s. Then, he and my uncle spent hours telling us crazy things they did before my cousins and I were born. And then they called my future husband a wuss for not doing whiskey shots. If there's one thing straight-laced Hank Hill types love, it's building fires. It's constructive and therefore ethically good, yet also dangerous and destructive. Basically, they get to be bad boys on a primal level. Going to a movie with my 15-year-old, getting out of the car, and I turn just wrong and twinge my back. She asks what's wrong, and I say, "I threw my back out with your mum last night." She's looking at me like a deer in the headlights, and I cannot stop laughing, which incidentally did not help my back. Glad she has a family? Savage. My mum has severe back problems. When people would ask what happened, she would say, "Well, me and my husband were on the trapeze." She said it with a straight face, and people weren't sure if she was kidding or not. Doctors, nurses, neighbours, family members, no one was safe. Went to my 12-year-old son's end-of-season dinner for his sports team. Just an informal get-together at a local family pizza place on a Friday night. One of the parents brought multiple cases of wine with him, wine salesman, and we all went a bit nuts. I don't drink much these days, so it hit me extra hard. Apparently, when we were walking home, I was hiding in the bushes, then leaping out at random people, pretending to be a Nosferatu-type vampire and hissing at them. Hissing! My poor kid was mortified. P.S. I'm a hobbit-sized woman, so the people passing weren't scared by me, just bemused or annoyed. A hobbit-sized woman leaping out of the bushes and hissing like a vampire would still be fairly frightening, because they're hard as a spot hiding in the bush. This happened to my husband. We had a whole gaggle of teenage kiddos over at our house one Friday night. My husband had a few beers and then snuck off behind the garage to have a smoke. He doesn't smoke in front of me since I quit. He had bummed a really strong cig and it made him super dizzy. Just as he was kneeling over, a group of teenagers came along the path, just in time to see him fall over onto the lawnmower. He pretended to be getting ready to mow, which made them howl with laughter. They still talk about that time Dad fell over and tried to cover it up by saying he was going to mow at 11 p.m. Late but funny. My girlfriend's dad came home late after a night of drinking when she was a kid. Didn't know my girlfriend was having her friends for a sleepover. He stumbled into her room to give her a kiss goodnight and tripped over a cot in the middle of her room. He was confused as to why it was there, so he did the nice dad thing of putting her cot away for her. Turns out there was a teenage girl sleeping in said cot that got folded up. Makes for good storytelling. Yes, she woke up freaking out. They were all mortified at the time, but 15 years later it's a funny story to look back on. Also, nobody was hurt. He just had no idea anyone was sleeping over, so he was confused as to why a cot was out in a drunken haze. Ha, I can just picture this. I farted really loudly, and it smelled. Daughters outdo me nowadays, but I plan to be incontinent when I reach my 80s and live with one of them, playing the long game. I've already picked the kids who get me. Payback is lovely. Okay, I'm a parent with a host of stupid things done, but my oldest is only 8 now. But I'm a scout leader, regularly dealing with our teenage rover scouts. And at our clubhouse, we've got a parking problem with our neighbouring gardening club. So when one particularly nasty neighbour yet again parked in our spots, we might have put whistles in her exhaust pipe and laughed madly when she drove away and all those whistles started actually working as intended. And all that in front of quite a few rover scouts. Yeah, that wasn't really showing a good example, and we did tell them that, kinda. We just couldn't keep our faces straight anymore. Ha! This is so pure compared to the other things in this thread. It's especially great because the offending party was the garden club. My mum doesn't have a Reddit, so I'll answer for her. At the time, we lived with her significant other, and a friend of his turned 40, and there was going to be a big party. For some reason, it was allowed to bring kids, so I was dragged along. I was 14, I think. All the kids were put in a smaller room so the adults could drink and be rowdy. My mum was very nervous meeting all these people she didn't know and drank a bit too much wine. It was the first time I saw her drunk. The night ended with her throwing up pink vomit all over the cab and my lap, but I think she topped that during her friend's 40th birthday. I was around 18 or 19 then, I think, maybe older. She again got drunk, but this time she started making out with some woman at the party. I was so confused. She's not gay, so it was a bit weird to witness. My dad once threw a tennis ball for our dog to fetch, and just as he threw it, I appeared round the corner and the ball hit me on my left eye. My dad came running and wanted me to see a doctor. I could tell he felt really ashamed for doing that. He then spent the whole night by my bed, like I was dying or something. I got a PS3 as my birthday gift that year when I already had a decent PC and didn't even need a console. Love my parents, and after reading this thread, I feel lucky to have such loving parents. I know, man, but as I don't really play on console, I only bought like 5 games for my PS3 ever. Uncharted Drake's Fortune, Red Dead Redemption, Little Big Planet, Street Fighter 4 and FIFA 12. I don't really drink often, so I'm a bit of a lightweight when it comes to drinking. About 7 months ago I got drunk and suddenly worried about my kids drinking and driving, so I kept video calling them, 19 and 17, and making sure they weren't drunk. I can see it now. Hey, you kids! Better not be drunk. Lol, pretty close. They kept reassuring me that I was the only drunk one. Bringing my daughter home from school in a traffic jam, with some guy in a car waiting to merge into our line. When there was enough space, I got annoyed and didn't let him in while being rude. This was 10 years ago now, and I still feel ashamed of myself for acting like a complete hooligan. I go out of my way to be courteous now, hoping I go some way towards redemption. Makes me sad just thinking about it. Yikes, man, how do you even live with yourself? I have very, very vivid dreams sometimes. It's always mundane though, going to the grocery store, mowing the lawn, going to the bathroom, stuff of that nature. Well, one night I was having one of these dreams and I got up and started peeing in the laundry basket. My wife was yelling at me, "What are you doing?" At that point my daughter came out of her room and turned on the light. I woke up midstream and couldn't stop. She flipped the light on and immediately off again. My husband used to fart on the kids, head farts. The older two complained that he never pranked our youngest because she's the baby. Well, one day he decided to give her a head fart too. He shouldn't have trusted the fart. He was wearing shorts, thankfully. It still parted her hair. So now we have this joke that he sharted on a toddler. He also once sleepwalked into the neighbour's house naked at 3 a.m. as they were leaving for work. We have both twerked in front of their friends. And they learned most of the dirty jokes they know from us. This is like the third post I've read like this. Who are these people that are farting on their kids? Why is this a thing?